Okay, so today, while I am not here, there has been lots of people gone for the last couple days. So I am going to talk you through how to find pattern rules from patterns and from tables. If the person that is with you today is wanting to do these with you, they can write pattern rules with you, or they can pause and press play after you've had a chance to write. So everyone will need a small whiteboard and a marker. So we're going to pause the video while everyone gets the supplies that they need. So everyone needs a small whiteboard and a marker. Okay, so hopefully everyone has the supplies that they need. What I want you to do is I want you to write a pattern rule for the visual pattern that's on the board. So I've got my position 1, position 2, position 3. What would my pattern rule look like? Press play when most people are finished. Okay, so what I might see is that I might see that if I look at my numbers, okay, I've got 3 balls in this first pattern, and I've got 5 balls in my second pattern, and I have 7 balls in my next pattern. Yesterday, some people saw, like, kind of circled where they saw the pattern growing. So for example, in pattern 1, I might have these 2, and then I add 2 more each time. And then I add another 2 more each time. And this singular ball here at the bottom seems to stay the same in each of the patterns. And if I went back to, some people yesterday talked about having a 0 term, and they said if I had a 0 term, I would have that same single ball in that pattern. So if I was to write this rule, yesterday some people were telling me that I was going to have to multiply by, I don't want to do that, multiply by 2 and add 1. So that means if I have the term number, so if I look, for example, at number 3, if I went 2 times 3, that gives me 6, and then I'm going to take 6 plus 1, and that gives me 7. So that was a way that we wrote rules in grade 8. So we might have done it in words. Some people yesterday started with writing like the number of tiles or tennis balls is equal to times 2 plus 1. And then we kind of talked about changing that notation and using x's and y's. So in grade 9, we're going to write this as y equals 2 times x plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second to try another one. So if I look at this pattern, can you write a rule for this pattern? So look at it and see if you can find what's changing, this staying the same, and what is changing each time. So pause the video so you have a chance to do that. Okay, so if you're playing the video, you might notice that I went from 5 balls to 6 balls. So I'm adding 1. So you might have seen this singular ball being added on. And then the next round, I've got my 5, 6, 7 balls. So again, I've got 1 more being added on. So we're seeing this singular ball being added on each time. And if I think what stays the same in every single picture, or if I went back to term 0, I would have the 3 balls here, the 4 balls, sorry, not 3, staying the same each time. So this part is staying the same in each of my diagrams. So if you didn't see that, take a chance, pause the video, and write a pattern rule. Okay, so in this case, since my pattern is growing by 1 each time, I'm going to have to take my position number, so my X, and times it by 1. And then I'm going to add on 4 because there's 4 pieces staying the same each time. So like this is 4 and this is 4. So I get 1x plus 4. And your grade 8 teacher might have said that you don't write ones when they're in front of things. So you might just write x plus 4. If that's what you have written down, those answers are both correct. Okay, try the next pattern. See if you can write a pattern rule for the hibiscus flowers. So I'm going to pause the video and you try this one. Okay, so what I see changing from pattern 1 to pattern 2 is I see this. I've got 3 flowers plus 1. So I'm growing by 4. And then if I look at my pattern again, I've got 3 more being added onto the bottom, and then I have this one on top. So I have plus 4 again. This one gets a little bit trickier though, because if I work back to term 0, I don't have any flowers, because if I subtract 4, I'm going to have -1 hibiscus flowers, which is a hard one to draw. Okay, so what might your pattern rule look like in this case? So if I was writing this, I would say, like if I was to test my numbers, I might try 3 times 4 minus 1, and that gives me 12 minus 1, and that gives me 11. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this rule works. So I'm going to write y is equal to 4x, and I'm using 4 because my pattern's growing by 4 each time. And then I'm going to subtract 1 because 1 is what's in my 0 position. And I don't know why it's highlighting the whole screen, but 1 is in my 0 position. So I'm going to highlight that -1. Okay, so we can also do something similar with a table. So I want you to see if you can come up with a pattern rule from the table. So pause the video and try finding it from the table. Okay, so what you might do is you might start by looking at how much this side is growing by. So to go from 6 to 11, I have to add 5. And I'm going to check and make sure that they are all add 5. So 11 plus 5 gives me 16. 16 plus 5 gives me 21. 21 plus 5 gives me 26. So that's very similar to what I had in my last set of pictures. I can see what my pattern is growing by each time. The other thing that I might check is that this side is going up by 1 each time. So if I was to write this pattern as a rule, I'd start by writing y is equal to 5x. But I have a small problem, because if I took, for example, 5 and multiplied it by 1, well, that gives me 5. Or if I took 5 and I times it by 2, that gives me 10. But I don't want 10, I want 16. So how do I get from 10 to 16? I have to add 6. So this value is called my constant value. So if I was looking at the patterns that we were using before, it's the part that's in my 0 term. And I can check here that I have my 0 term at 0 and 6. Okay, try the next pattern. I'm going to give you a minute before you press play and reveal the pattern rule. Okay, so I start again looking for what is the differences in my table. So from 4 to 7, I'm going to go up by 3. From 7 to 10, I'm going to go up by 3. From 10 to 13, I'm going to go up by 3. Okay, So I'm consistently going up by 3 in my output column, and I'm going up by 1s in my input column. So when I write my rule, I'm going to write y is equal to 3x to start, because my pattern is growing by 3 each time. But then I have to check to see if this always works. So if I go 2 times 3, well, that gives me 6, not 4. And I go 3 times 3, well, that gives me 9 and not 7. So what do I have to do to those numbers to get back to 4 or back to 7? I have to take away 2. So my constant is take away 2. My other option is that I could go backwards in my table. I could find out what my first term is by working backwards and subtracting 3. So if I take 4 and subtract 3, I'm going to get 1. And if I go from 1 and I subtract 3, I'm going to get negative 2. And there we are. That there is my 0 term. It's hard to see. Okay, so we're going to do one more table before you can work on your practice worksheet. Or once you're finished that, you can work on the continuum in the back of the classroom. Okay, so this table of values, can you come up with a pattern rule for this table of values? So you're going to press pause and try it before hitting play. Okay, so in this case, I start to notice to go from 14 to 24, I'm going to add 10. And to go from 24 to 34, I'm going to add 10. And from 34 to 44, I'm going to add 10. 44 to 54, I'm going to add 10. So I notice that the right side of my column is all going up by 10 each time. And then I check my x's. This time, my growth seems to be a little different. Instead of adding by 1 each time, I'm adding by 2. So what I need to figure out is if I only went up one of those jumps, how much each of those jumps would be. So to do that, what I can do is I can take the value on my right, so that 10, and I'm going to divide it by 2. And in this case, that's going to give me 5. So now I can say that my rule starts out like y is equal to 5x. And then I need to find that constant value, or my 0 term. So I'm going to check. If I went 2 times 5, that gives me 10. What more do I need to get to 14? Well, I can add, maybe not 14, I can add 4 to get to 10. And let's just check to make sure that works. 4 times 5 gives me 20. If I add 4, it gets to 24. Okay. So the next thing that you're going to work on, and I made a mistake when I said it last time, is the continuum that's on the back board. So you are going to work, you're going to start at level 1, try the questions that are there. I think there's 4 on each slip. Check your answers. If they are all right, then move on to the next level. You can work on this with your table partner. Okay, and then there is the homework page that was assigned yesterday that I will be checking to see if it's correct for tomorrow or finished for tomorrow.